That case was a 30-year-old female who had either 5 or 6 children fighting opioid addiction, and thought they were taking a hit or bump or whatever you call it of heroin, and she's no longer with us. So, and it was probably what we believe was 100% fentanyl. Once we backtracked and did police work, we got great detectives that are willing to take that lead, that little bit of lead and a little bit of community help, and we'll take that and we will get these people that are putting the bad stuff, this fentanyl, this stuff that will kill you instantly. You can touch that stuff and die. We don't want that on our streets. So when we get these leads and people are helping us, we're also doing police work, detective work, trying to get those dealers out of our community as well. So, but there's two sides to this. I don't think that alone stops the problem. People fighting addiction or need help as well. I've been the captain of investigations for a little over a year now. In that, I have all of the crimes against person, crimes against property, special investigation, including drugs and the gang unit. All that falls under my supervision. And one of my biggest goals and objectives is crime reduction and positive things that we're doing in the city, trying to reduce crime and addiction. It falls under that. Unfortunately, a lot of times we see the end of drug addiction when someone's overdosed and life is lost. Just in the last couple of years, we've had a couple of those cases where young children have gotten around illicit drugs, and we've also lost adults who left children behind, and those are the things that we see and have to investigate and invest in the detective division in the crimes against person side. And then also on the drug side, we have our drug unit out doing proactive stuff, trying to help get drug deals off the street. But what we've found is there's more to it than that. The drug addiction's real and touches everybody. So we've tried to take a leadership role in trying to do more in the community, and arresting addicts is not the way that we cure that in our community. We've made that's pretty clear to us, so we're trying to do more. The more common is the theft type crimes, where addicts will steal from people around them and from the community, and shoplifting. We see a big increase in property and theft relative to the addiction in the community, but we also, and sometimes addiction leads people to do pretty desperate things, increase in robbery and violent crime as well, when addiction truly takes over. So more common is property type crimes, but in its worst form, addiction makes people do some pretty violent things sometimes to feed their addiction. I came to the police department at young, 20 years old, and probably wouldn't say I was an expert on addiction at all. Had seen some things growing up, but not to the extent now, and understanding of it. And if you'd asked me that question at 20 years old at the police department, I said, we just lock everybody up. That's how we fix the problem. After years of doing this job and seeing the outcome and seeing the revolving door, people need help. Jail doesn't fix addiction. There are bad people who need to go to jail. I mean, I won't dispute that, but an overwhelming majority need a path to get some help as well, more than just going to jail. And even in jail, programs, things that I think that we do have in place here and that are growing to help fight the addiction. For years here in Danville, it seemed like we were not as bad as everybody else when we would look relative to other communities and some of the national problems. But we had a lot of the addiction was coming from people who were getting on prescription medications and that side of the opioid addiction that were coming from legal outlets, but addicted nonetheless. More recently, the last couple of years, Danville's, we've kind of seen a shift on a lot more heroin in Danville, methamphetamine, heroin, that those drugs weren't here as much prior to the last couple of years. And now it's prevalent. It's kind of everywhere. They go hand in hand with the pill addiction. Opioids such a broad spectrum. But if you'd asked me that question 3 years ago, most of our opioid stuff was related to the pill stuff. Now we have heroin, and more recently we've had a death related, and our drug investigators did a good job backtracking. We have pure fentanyl on the streets of Danville here in the last 4 or 5 months, which was another eye-opener and made us really want to be proactive in doing all we can to combat the addiction here and bring people together through some of the projects we're working on now to try to combat this. We deal with opioid addiction in all shapes and sizes. It's no one section of the community Not one age range, not one race. It's kind of across the board. And many times it starts with somebody had a surgery or things like that. And then some people who've been fighting addiction since a young age, and they just kind of go from drug to drug. But when you talk to folks, it's across the board. It's not, nobody's immune to this. It can happen to anybody, any home, any neighborhood, any race. There's no pattern to this, at least not in Danville. I don't know about the rest of the nation, but it can hit anybody in any family at any time. For me, I really got involved in this in October. We had the death of a 30-year-old female, and when the fentanyl really hit, and from the police department side, we sat and said, what more could we do? And we reached out to all these partners, RASAP, Danville, Pennsylvania Community Services, all the healthcare providers, law enforcement partners, fire department, everybody on the front lines, and people doing the treatment, prevention. It got everybody together in December for the first meeting of what we just called an opioid response team, trying to figure out what more we could do from the police department side. And we're getting ready to have our third meeting Thursday. And in a short period of time, we've gotten better at keeping data, sharing data, and tracking data, at least on the police department side. And through that collaboration, the health department has provided us naloxone. Every officer in the Danville Police Department now carries naloxone. We're finishing up that training in the next 2 weeks. So we went kind of full speed ahead the last 90 days since that first meeting in December. Trying to get everything where it should be with the police department to try to save lives. So we put the naloxone out there and got that training done, and collaborating with everybody and anybody in the community that's got skin in the game. Daily emails and phone calls with different partners, trying to bring everybody together. And this collaborative went from something I was thinking maybe 12 or 15 groups in a room to we're probably going to have as many as 40 or 50 different groups at this third meeting. And to the point we're going to have to break up and deal with projects individually, because this is a growing issue, and there's a lot more that we can do. Well, Danville's I'm cautiously optimistic. We haven't had a lot of the opioid stuff in teenagers as bad as we have. Most of the problems we've been having have been with adults. And the school system, some of those trends, and talking to some of our neighboring jurisdictions, and we don't have the seizures and the issues of the opioids, or heroin, and things like that in our school system. Happy to say that. Some of the trends we do, a lot of our youth turn to marijuana and the synthetic marijuana, the K2 deuce they call it, mind-altering and pretty nasty stuff at times, because they don't know what they're getting. We don't always know what they're getting when we see this stuff. So that's probably most of our youth are starting there with marijuana and the K2, and of course the K2 stuff is spices, used to call different things, but anyway, the imitation marijuana is probably where most of our youth are turning now in Danville. We partner with the schools, and they have a lot of programs, and a lot of the same partners we're working with here, offering programs, mentorship. A lot of stuff we're doing through our gang interactions are also aimed at some of those at-risk youth who end up doing a lot of different high-risk activities, including drug use and things that we're trying to combat in the community. So we're just partnering. We meet with the schools regularly, at least once a month, to talk about the at-risk youth, which generally goes towards gang side and the violence that we're trying to eliminate kids that are at risk, but it's also at-risk drug use. Same kind of model we're using for our gang interdiction is going to parents and letting them know what's going on, because many times they don't know, and offering services and working together. Virginia's got Good Samaritan laws in place because our goals are always to save lives, and that's what the goals of that law are, why it's there. We want folks, if you're out and you're with someone and you're doing illicit drugs, you're doing these things, and someone goes unconscious and they need medical help, we want people to feel comfortable that they don't have to leave someone behind, dump somebody somewhere, or not get the medical attention. That's the whole purpose of the law. So what it allows is, if someone needs medical attention, get them help. Call 911, take them to the hospital, get them life-saving treatment. And that law allows that if you were doing something illegal, if you were using drugs, if there was drugs on the scene, the fact that you called and gave help is a defense for any criminal action that could come out of it. So people need to feel comfortable that they can call without facing criminal sentence or going to jail or panicking. We want people to feel like they can come to us. And it's the same thing for the addict. If an addict walks to the door of the police department and wants help, we're going to get them help. And if they've got, hey, look, I've got needles in the car, then we want to meet them there and get them the help they need, and not, oh, we need to lock them up. You know, that we can't turn our head to everything, but that law gives an addict and the people around an addict, when things go bad, some protection to get them the help they need without facing criminal prosecution. Me personally, it's important because it is. I am from Danville. I see this. I know people who've been through this fight and are fighting addiction. Even now, people who I try to help, and we're regularly through the police department sending people to counseling, referring people to Danville, Pennsylvania Community Services. And it would be great to have a bigger partnership, more options for treatment, and a path that anybody that wants help can get it. So it's very important to me. Seeing a young person there who with 5 or 6 kids dead, that was kind of an eye-opener for, I think, the whole police department. The end of October, this is here, that we've got fentanyl in this town, or we've got heroin here, and we've got to deal with this. I think that was, for me, that was the real eye-opener, that we need to do everything we could to not let that happen again. Seeing people come together and talk in a room and trying to come up with answers, and just, you know, actually asking a couple people right now that I know and I speak to personally regularly who are fighting addiction, and, hey, do you think something like a HOPE initiative where you could go and get help, do you think that would help people if they're early on their addiction before they get to your point? And everything I'm hearing from people who are in that world, who have been fighting this, is Danville needs these things, and they're positive steps. And through our collaboration and partnerships, we're trying to make that happen, to give them a clear path towards getting that help.